If you were a kid growing up in the 90s or early 2000s, chances are you've had a few Goosebumps books lying under your bed, where they belonged, next to the dust bunnies, your rogue socks, and possibly a vengeful ventriloquist dummy. Written by the master of child-safe horror, R.L. Stine, Goosebumps was the literary version of sneaking downstairs to watch unsolved mysteries when your parents were asleep. You knew it was gonna mess you up, but you just couldn't help it. But what was it about Goosebumps that made it so delightfully freaky? Why did we, as innocent and very impressionable children, collectively decide that stories about haunted masks, evil clocks, and sentient camera equipment were exactly what our developing brains needed? And perhaps more mysteriously, why were the covers so weirdly gorgeous? Let's dive in. Hold on to your green slime. R.L. Stine somehow found a way to write horror for kids that managed to be unsettling without veering into therapy-inducing territory. Most Goosebumps stories followed a simple formula. Precocious kid moves into a new town, finds a weird object, ignores clear warning signs, ends up battling a refrigerator that wants to eat him. That formula, repeated over and over, somehow never got old. Why? Because the stories were like the literary equivalent of roller coasters. You kind of knew what was coming, but that didn't stop you from screaming when it dropped a ghost on you in the final chapter. Let's not ignore Stine's true genius, those twist endings. A Goosebumps book never ended with a hug and a life lesson. Oh no, it ended with a reveal like, "And then I realized I was the monster all along," or "As my parents removed their human masks and revealed their alien faces." Imagine Black Mirror, but for 10-year-olds with more werewolves. Part of what made Goosebumps so unsettling was its complete disregard for conventional horror logic. Vampires? Sure. Ghosts? Of course. But also, evil lawn gnomes, cameras that predicted death, abominable snowmen who were surprisingly bad at snow management. You learned very early that everything could be cursed. That seemingly innocent cuckoo clock in the hallway? Time-traveling nightmare. Your Halloween mask, permanently bonding with your face like some rubberized alien parasite. That sponge in your kitchen sink? Yeah, it wants you dead. It instilled a healthy dose of paranoia in an entire generation. You couldn't trust anything. Now we arrive at the true unsung hero of the Goosebumps empire, the cover art. If R.L. Stine was the creepy puppet master pulling the strings, then illustrator Tim Jacobus was the mad painter standing in the shadows, airbrush in hand, conjuring up pure nightmare fuel and drenching it in neon goo. The original Goosebumps covers are the stuff of fever dream legend. They were richly detailed, vibrantly colored, and had that satisfyingly tactile, drippy slime font that practically oozed off the page. They didn't just illustrate a scene, they performed it. A haunted mask wasn't just sitting there, it was leaping off the face of a screaming child. A monster wasn't hiding, it was already halfway out of the closet and eyeing your Capri Sun. There was no subtlety, no minimalist restraint. These covers were unapologetically loud, weird, and utterly hypnotic. And this, dear friend, is where we must pause and pour one out for the state of modern book covers. Today, most book covers, especially in the digital age, are designed for the algorithm gods. They must look good in thumbnail form on a phone screen, which apparently means they all must now use flat, muted colors, a vague silhouette of a child walking into a forest, maybe one carefully placed item, an umbrella, a key, a mysterious sandwich, and typography so clean and sterile it could double as a toothpaste ad. Where's the gore? Where's the dripping font? Where's the haunted sponge? Modern covers are so preoccupied with being aesthetic and refined that they forgot the entire point of a book for kids, to terrify them into loving it. It's hard to imagine a cover today that would dare to feature a giant fanged hamster gnawing its way out of a classroom terrarium. But in the world of Goosebumps, that wasn't just possible. It was Tuesday. Tim Jacobus and the Goosebumps aesthetic didn't cater to minimalism. They catered to chaos. And as kids, we wanted that chaos. We didn't care if it looked good on a Kindle screen. We wanted to clutch that glossy paperback in our trembling little hands and stare at the unholy, hyper-saturated horror that awaited us. Goosebumps wasn't just a book series, it was a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Kids traded them like rare Pokemon cards, passed them around in class like contraband, and used them as playground litmus tests for bravery. If you could read Night of the Living Dummy without flinching, you were basically a certified street tough. The series worked so well because it gave kids just enough fear to feel grown up, without the actual psychological damage of, say, Pet Sematary. It was horror with training wheels, and we loved it. Also, let's not forget the Goosebumps TV show, because it was a masterpiece of after-school eeriness. Airing in the golden era of kids' horror television, it brought R.L. Stine's creepy creations to life in a way that was somehow both campy and genuinely unsettling. The practical effects had a wonderful eerie charm. The child acting was often delightfully awkward, as it should be, and the lighting seemed to come from a place of pure flashlight under your chin chaos. And let's talk about that theme music, an absolute banger. That spooky synth melody paired with the image of Stine's briefcase popping open and unleashing a swirling cloud of evil? Goosebumps. Literal goosebumps. It still slaps harder than a ghost at a seance with unresolved issues. Was every monster terrifying? No, but that only added to the charm. The show leaned fully into its own weirdness, and that commitment made it iconic. It was the perfect spooky snack between episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark and reruns of Animorphs. It didn't try to be too slick or self-serious, it just wanted to freak you out a little. And that's exactly what it did. Goosebumps was the freak show we all lined up for, and proudly paid for with our Scholastic Book Fair bucks. It taught us that fear could be fun, that monsters weren't always under the bed. Sometimes they were wearing gym shorts and asking to borrow your camera. And those covers? Pure art. Museum worthy. If your museum is haunted and smells faintly of ectoplasm and cafeteria tater tots. So if you ever feel nostalgic for a time when your biggest fear was being turned into a plant by your science teacher, crack open a Goosebumps book. Just make sure your ventriloquist dummy is facing the other way. You can't be too careful.